Harlan Ullman joins us now. He's the chairman of the Killowen Group and a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council here in Washington. Harlan, welcome to the program. A lot of questions for you. What do you make of the timing of this cyber attack on Ukraine government websites?
First, Asieh, Happy New Year. Let us hope 2022 is better than 2020, but things are not getting off to a good start, as you pointed out. This is what could be called a Chinese water torture. Putin has got a lot of tools to his use, and right now he's putting great pressure on President Zelensky of Ukraine, because I think the way that he sees a deal is to get Zelensky to capitulate to something along the lines of Ukraine agreeing to become a neutral state, some kind of an interim situation in which Ukraine is not going to press for NATO membership, allowing Putin to declare victory and allowing this crisis to recede. But having said that, he has lots of options. He easily could attack if he wanted. I don't think he will. And if he does choose to use some kind of military coercion, I think that he will go to the lowest risk, which would be sending more Russian forces into Donetsk, which would be relatively easy and very, very cost-free. He doesn't want any body bags going back to Russia right now. For our side, we need to continue to talk.
And that was my next question. Does diplomacy at this point still have a chance?
Absolutely. Putin does not want to get into a war. Putin does not want all these sanctions. He's playing a strong hand, I think, rather well, but he wants to talk. And I think what we need to do is to come up with a better bargaining position. For example, we've not asked the Russians what concessions are they willing to make if we are going to go halfway to meet their demands. We have also not said, look, if you continue along this line, you are going to force us to expand NATO. You're going to force us exactly what you do not want us to do, which is to move closer to your border. Sweden and Finland are already talking about this. We could talk to Georgia and Ukraine. We may be forced to put more troops on the eastern flank. We really don't want to do this, Vladimir. But do you understand what you're causing us and even forcing us to do if this cannot be subject to negotiations? Unfortunately, we're not taking that tack at the moment.
So where is the room for compromise here? Where can they meet in the middle, if you will?
There is tons of room. For example, NATO could come up with an agreement saying for the time being, we are not really going to be interested in membership, even though we reserve that particular right until states meet all the criteria. And Ukraine and Georgia do not meet the criteria for a number of reasons. We could also say that, look, we want to have confidence building measures as first steps. We want to reduce military exercises. We'll be happy to withdraw military systems. We might even take Aegis ashore and as a measure of goodwill say, we will remove the missiles, not the sites, in exchange for you doing A, B, C, and D. So there's lots of room here if we are creative and imaginative enough and understand where Putin is heading and what's the best way to address him. But simply focusing on some kind of a missile regime and reducing exercises is not going to work because Putin has far greater aspirations. He wants to change the strategic framework in Europe. And we should say, what a good idea. Why don't we see how we can do that in the best interest of all concerned?
Well, as you mentioned, you said Ukraine and Georgia have not met the requirements for joining NATO. So why is this even coming up now?
Simply because Putin wants some guarantees. And there aren't going to be guarantees. And quite frankly, from Putin's perspective, dealing with the United States is not easy. We always believe that it's the Russians who are at fault, but it's the United States that abrogated the anti-ballistic missile treaty in 2001. It's the United States that walked away from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran. And it's also the United States that pulled out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Agreement. So from Putin's perspective, he could say, I'm from Missouri. Show me. How can I trust you when you've done all these things in the past? But having said that, that's just pure rhetoric. And there are areas where we can agree to some kind of reduction in tensions. It's in the best interest of all parties.
And very quickly, Harlan, how far is the United States and their NATO allies willing to go to stop or prevent a full-scale invasion or subvert it?
Well, let me be very clear. We cannot deter a Russian attack if that's what Putin chooses to do, period. And we should not delude ourselves. Having said that, I would not be bothered by that because Putin doesn't want to do it. And as I said, if we take the negotiating lines of what concessions are the Russians prepared to make, and we will be forced to expand NATO, I think these are powerful arguments that will play to Putin's needs and Putin's real interest in trying to improve the security framework in Europe. We will see, however, how this unfolds.